Hi, everyone. This is Norman Kochnak here from Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnak. Now, Chris Vernon has joined me there. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. As I said, it's pretty early again, but I'm up and full of the joys of spring, as they say. So,
well, that's your fault for living in England. I'm sorry. We've got Barry Knight also on the phone. Barry is in back studio at the moment, and unfortunately we can't see him. So I'm going to keep him on the phone. You can see Barry Knight's name there very clearly on the phone. And Barry's going to be listening. And just to let you know quickly about Barry Knight, Barry Knight is an amazing man. He's reaching is it 7th decade, Barry?
It is, yes. I started as an extra 15 years of age, and I'm now 83 and still coaching on Monday nights.
All right. So Barry's actually, I'll speak on Barry's behalf. Barry's been involved with cricket for 7 decades. It's quite a record. Not only was he a player for England, he played at a time where there was the professionals and the amateurs. He actually toured India because some of the amateurs wouldn't go, and he was a professional. He went, which is an intriguing period of cricket in history. And on top of that, Barry came to Australia in 1970 or 71, Barry?
I came over to play for Mossman and lost my nerve for flying in 1970. I've only been home once to England in the last 50 years, but I have coached 26 Australian players, including Border, the War Brothers.
All right, let me talk on your behalf, Barry, because I'm not sure they're hearing you. Okay, Barry's just informed me that he emigrated to Australia in 1970, and he actually began what was to become the very, very first true coach in the world of cricket. Did you know that, Chris?
I didn't know.
Well, Barry coached some 26 Australian players, including the War Brothers. Was it Border as well, Barry?
Alan Border was my first.
Alan Border was his first. And they had the true sense of an indoor set of cricket nets, the videoing of players, the analysis of players, the whole approach, Chris, of how you go about coaching. The first true coach of players and true coaches of teams. And it's a remarkable achievement back in 1970. Prior to that, they didn't have coaches in the true sense of the word. He became that person, and it was quite incredible. And we're joined by a partner as well. I'll just quickly.
I mean, it's fantastic, isn't it? Not the worst person to say that you coach first, Alan Border. He, even as a slightly biased Englishman, he had a fairly decent career, didn't he?
So, Barry, I'll talk on your behalf, Barry. You can talk to me, but again, you've got obviously Alan Border, the War Brothers, including, was it also Blewett as well? Greg Blewett?
No, I never coached Greg. No, he was South Australia. I only coached New South Wales.
Okay, well, he basically.
I was based in Sydney, and so, as I say, the War Brothers, the Lee Brothers came to me, and Brett and Shane.
So he had, I'm repeating as Barry's talking to me, the Brett Lee and Shane Lee, the War Brothers, Alan Border, an incredible number of the most.
And actually 4 Australian captains.
And actually 4 Australian captains.
Yeah.
Border, Taylor, Clark.
And who was the other one? Yeah, I forgot.
He's forgotten the other one.
I've forgotten the 4th one.
It'll come to you. So the reality is Barry's unfortunately not on the screen. We've unfortunately got a lovely black screen for Barry, but he can't talk. Well, he's hearing. He thinks it's better that way. But Barry, look, I'll get him on future shows, but we'll have Barry just here for the moment. Barry will be in the background, and you can listen to us talking, Barry, and you can add some comments. So I'll be your voice. The fact is, Barry Knight, I interviewed him previously on another channel, TV Arcana, and the program was amazing. Barry has so much insightful stuff. He'd explained to me about the professional versus amateur status of cricket, where he was deemed to be a professional. It means he was paid. Amateurs were generally of a certain class, you could argue, was a way of describing them. They would then choose when they would play. They were not paid, but they were deemed to be amateurs. And they actually ended up when a tour to India would take place, most of the amateurs would not go, but the professionals would. So Barry was catapulted into being one of the leading bowlers of England in that Indian series. He also was able, his last wicket, and you can say yes or no to Barry, his last wicket that he took was Sir Garfield Sobers. Was that right?
Yeah, yes I did. But listen, I also entered to India because I was Chandrasekhar's first Test wicket.
And for our Indian audience, Barry Knight was Chandrasekhar's very first Test wicket, which doesn't makes it very admirable for Chandrasekhar, probably not so much for Barry. No.
My leg stumped out.
He knocked his leg stump out, which is Barry. I'll probably have to get a photo of that, Barry. So Barry lives in Australia since 1970. He's been coaching for what is virtually 50 plus years, has incredible knowledge on cricket. Imagine it, the very first ever coach in the world with videography at his early days, videoing people, training them indoors, the most elite Australians you could imagine. Everybody in Sydney during that period went to his coaching. Literally everybody. Correct, Barry?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He coached lawyers. It wasn't just top cricketers, it was everybody. There's not a profession of a person that hasn't coached. All right, Barry, we might thank you for that, Barry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get your StreamYard fixed for us so you can join us tomorrow at the same time. How about that? We can work on that overnight. So Barry's saying goodbye to everybody. Barry, you can happily listen to the video recording now we're going to do. But I'll talk to you live shortly after that, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. That's a little bit of a teaser. We'll get to meet Barry on screen, but he is beyond belief one of the most interesting players. Chris, it's very interesting to think that coaching started with this man.
It's and I mean it's that's brilliant, isn't it? I think that anything like that you can say, even if he wasn't the world's first coach, to say that you responsible or had a part to play in Alan Border, the War brothers, Mark Taylor, their careers is, that's enough for most people's CVs, isn't it? So I mean, it's fantastic.
Well, we should have a little quiz. We know 3 of the 4 captains he coached. That is Mark Taylor, Alan Border, and Michael Clark. There's a 4th person. I'm going to guess. Oh, who would I guess? Probably Steve Waugh. I'm sorry, it's Steve Waugh. He already mentioned it to us because he's just mentioned the Waugh brothers. So it was Steve Waugh was the man he left out. So Taylor, Clark, Waugh, and Border. He coached. It's remarkable, isn't it?
There's a few test runs there.
Yeah. Sorry.
What does he think? Who's going to win this series? What's his say?
He's my first comment to him when I rang him this morning, which he's a lovely man. He's absolutely fantastic. He said he's quite impressed the way England's playing, and if they keep it up, they should continue to win. But he said it's too early. The other team hasn't batted, which is the summation of everybody. We've got to see India bat in these conditions to actually know the truth about whether they're going to win or lose this game. It's way too early, even though it's been an incredibly impressive start by England, in particular Sibley, and again him getting out. Was it last ball yesterday? Was it?
Yeah, last ball. It wasn't technically last ball of the day, but it was. It wasn't the last ball of the over. It was the 3rd ball of the over, I think. And he, But no, I agree with Barry. It is too early to say, and it comes down to what England can do this morning. If they get bowled out for 400, I think India will be massively on top because I think that they'll be able to bat long. But if England get 600 or 550, then I think that it makes it very interesting because I think it probably takes India's chance of winning the test out. And then they have to try and work out how do they approach the rest of the test. So there's a stat I was looking this morning. Well, that where is it? Only once has a team reached stumps on day 1 of a test in India, having lost 3 wickets or fewer and lost. So only once has a team ever had 3 wickets or less and lost. The rest of it is 127, drawn 47, tied 1, lost 1. So, the stats, the history is there. I think only 1 in sort of 70 tests as a side got 3 wickets down or better and lost. So, there's, I know obviously the history is there to be broken, but at the same time, I think that's a positive sign for England's chances. And I think they'll just be really happy that they've put up a fight really and shown that they can do it. And Dom Sibley is the sort of cricketer who, I think we mentioned it on earlier podcasts, if he found some form, he's a bit like Alistair Cook, that he can just bat and bat and bat, which in India and that sort of attritional subcontinent style, he's perfect. If every time we bat first, he's 85 and out at the close of play, job done. They'll be absolutely delighted, I'm sure.
But a partner will have something to say about this. No one's ever been beaten after 3 down. Didn't they say something about the Gabba that's a fortress, and that Australia's never been beaten, or at least not since 1988. So, Chris,
Yeah.
going, pardon, what do you have to say?
Yeah,
About
I think 32 years, and you're talking about Gava, 32 years record. Then India can always have a record of chasing big scores. So if they can make 600 in a test in the home run, so I'm not worried about that on that note. I think, you know what, even if they have to chase 500 plus, they would be able to come back.
Oh,
And
that,
I
that,
think that's
it just changes.
the out there.
No, for sure. It just changes the dynamic of the game. I think if England get bowled out for something less than 500, I think that it's a big positive for India. Whereas, you know what it's like in cricket, it's scoreboard pressure, and you know if anything starting with a 5 or 6, it just adds that little bit of pressure for India. And you know, no one's doubting how good they are. It's just there's a lot of quality in that England bowling attack, and you know you can have attacking fields for longer. They can really go for it, and I think it just changes slightly how India approach it depending on how many England get. And yeah, India is still going to be favourites for the series and possibly even for this test. But I think first half an hour, 40 minutes this morning, really, if India take 2 or 3 quick wickets, then it changes the game. If Root and Stokes are there in an hour, then I think that it could be a long day for India in the field.
Even at Gaba, what Norman was saying, you know, India was severely incapacitated. They had no business pulling up their greatest series win of all time. Yet they did it at Goa. So I think they can do it obviously at their home ground. And this is just too early days. So fingers crossed. Some early wickets at the start of the day would be good.
No, absolutely.
Can I just quickly say, isn't this amazing? We're talking about a test match. Normally when a team gets in front, they get well in front. Not that the game's over, but we tend to think, well, they're going to keep winning and they're going to win. We can almost predict the result of the game. Here, even though England have done it sensationally well, we just don't know whether India can come back hard and really do a service on the England bowlers. We just don't know. We assume that England's big lead will be, if they get to a 500 plus score, it'll be unassailable. But we just don't know because India are capable of anything at the moment. And depending on the circumstances, they could fight back. They almost like to be behind to come back at the moment. This is their attitude about most of the games. It's intriguing. It's a very intriguing. I've never been so not certain of games in the way. Would you agree, Chris?
Yeah, as I said, it's a very different game compared to in Australia, in England, in different parts of the world. At the Gabba, 350 was a good first innings score, and India were expected to lose. And all of us, 350, even if you get to 250, 300, you're still in the game. And I think the Indians showed that. Whereas all of a sudden in a game at home and it looks like it's going to be a wearing wicket, I think today will probably be the best it will be to bat on, and then it's going to get progressively worse. Joe Root said in an interview last night, he said, we want to get 600 or 700. He said, we ain't going to be declaring. He said, we're going to get 700 if we can, and we're going to bat once. So there's a big difference in scoreboard pressure to 350 plays 320 on a good, fast, bouncy wicket at the Gabba. I know it had a bit of up and down bounce, but changes a lot to a turning sort of low, slow wicket with 700 on the board. It is an entirely different prospect for India to go out, and there'll be big pressure. Before the series started, it was who's going to win the battle, Kohli versus Root, for most runs. If Joe Root gets a double 100 today, that's big pressure on Kohli already to live up to that expectation and win that battle. And it's going to be fascinating. And I think you're going to see 2 very different bowling tactics in this test, especially. India are going to go for a lot of spin, whereas I think England will use Anderson, Stokes and Archer and reverse swing that ball. And I think you'll see more LBWs and more appeals from England because of that reverse swing bowling straight and trying to hit the wickets.
Aparna, are you hearing us clearly?
Yeah, yep.
Are you all okay? We're all hearing each other clearly. There are some comments that we lost voice then. So maybe if you don't need your earsets, you can hear sometimes the earset creates another so-called distraction. Can you hear clearly without the earsets?
Yeah.
I think she's okay. I think they were talking about Barry. So.
Oh no. Okay. All right. I can hear you very, very clearly, Aparna. It's not a problem. It's just maybe because I just feel that adds to. I'm not using any earphones. I'm loud. I'm in a room, so it's good. All right. In terms of time, we've got we'll go another 10 minutes. We can leave 5 minutes spare. There's no opening ceremonies today, so it's a bit different. I heard both Bumrah, the discussion of Bumrah, Jofra Archer, intriguing one. literally both of them are playing their first Test match in England and India, aren't they? Bumrah certainly is, and so is Archer.
Yep.
Despite the IPL experiences they've had and other formats. Bumrah kept talking about that in his press conference yesterday. That was his first game, which I found intriguing because the man he's been playing on his surfaces his whole life. But anyway, the ball issue, the saliva issue on the ball, the COVID-19 pandemic issue with not using saliva seems to be proving a point, Chris and Aparna. The fact is the ball can't be spat on and therefore shined as easily as it would normally do. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I don't know really. I don't know in India how much it would make a difference. If in England, it's shine, it's spit. Sometimes you take sweets out, mints. I think the Aussies and the English have always sort of been, fairly well known that that's what you can do. In India, obviously, they're trying to reverse swing the ball. In England, we're trying to get that ball as roughed up as possible. And I think yesterday, after 10 overs, Ishant Sharma and Bumrah were starting to reverse it. So with reverse swing, you tend to not. You tend to keep one side really dry, and the other side you dry shine as opposed to a saliva shine. So you don't use any spit on it at all if you can, and you just try and keep the ball really dry. So I think if it was a test in England or Australia, then it plays a big part. But I think in this test, I think they'll be just trying to keep that ball as dry as possible and trying to get it to reverse for them as quickly as possible. So.
Yeah, but the reality is Bumrah quite clearly said the ball was difficult to actually shine the way that he would like to, and it has affected his reverse. The ball reverse.
It becomes soft after a while, and the wicket is on a flatter side with the bounce being less. So, he said that they're going to figure it out. But I don't know how they're going to figure it out, but it does become difficult because it doesn't shine really well because of these new COVID rules. I think they can't use saliva, so they're not allowed to.
No, that's correct.
So they're very difficult during that time to maintain the ball. But I think they'll work it out.
Yeah, I just have there's a comment which I'm just seeing on screen here, and I agree with this. I think I mentioned it before. And this is Jack Daniels. That's not his real name. I'm sure that's his drinking habits, maybe one of his names. So Jack Daniels, is it fair to say that India may be suffering from an emotional hangover after the Australian series? Yes. Chris, I really think that's a yes. I think it's very normal. It's very normal to come off a huge success on a tour that you were into. Chris, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I think that there's obviously going to be that factor. I think that the main thing is that a lot of the side, especially the bowlers, didn't play a big part in that series, so they're obviously pretty fresh. I think that is a good point, but at the same time, if India need some kind of big up or aren't fired up for a home test series against England, who are I think that depending on conditions, India, Australia, and England are probably the three best sides with New Zealand. So, if India need any kind of extra motivation or fired up for a big Test series against England, then I don't get why they need an extra kick or an extra fire in the belly, if that makes sense. So, no, the bowling is going to be interesting. I think in the same way you guys are saying, let's wait and see until India bat on it. I think it's the same wait and see till England bowl on it. I think that. Yeah. They showed yesterday when India took the second new ball that only 3 out of 40 balls were hitting the stumps. I think that Bumrah and Sharma were trying to sort of bowl outside off stump. I think that when England bowl, I think Anderson will try and, especially with the older ball, will just try and bowl straight and come close to wicket, try and seam it or reverse swing it a little bit each way. And I think you'll find that a lot more balls will be hitting the stumps, especially when Anderson bowls. And bring the LBW and the umpires into play a little bit more.
Yep.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it might have been only a little over 2 weeks, and then get rounded off. It's very physically and mentally draining tour for India down here in Australia, and India has to be careful because that's the glow of that amazing series when it doesn't linger too long. And as we know, that Team England will be hoping that they just can find an opening to take control of the series and lay down a marker very early in the series. I think yesterday's play was nothing, just a strong display of that. And confident-wise, Team England would be pretty pleased because they had an amazing win in Sri Lanka before this series, and so did India. So I think that's not really an issue for both the teams. They're actually putting their best foot forward, and it's going to be a tough series ahead.
No, I think it's I think if you look at Australia in India, in the Indians when they played Australia, they fielded well. You know, the little things really went their way, and they really impressed. I watched the whole day yesterday, and they just looked a little bit scraggy, a little bit ragged at times. You know, I'm gonna touch on it again. I think Rishabh Pant isn't a great wicketkeeper. I think that he makes a lot of mistakes. I think he fumbles a lot as a drop catch. India didn't field very well. There's a few misfields went through legs, and it's little things like that they were doing in Australia. That you know, diving stops or the misfields or the no balls. India bowled 10 no balls yesterday. I think Nadeem bowled 5 or 6 no balls, and it's little things like that just think you know, you've got to be better than that. And I think that you'll see from England hopefully a far better, well-oiled performance, and it makes a difference. And you know, if we go out this morning and you know there's a bye or a couple of fumbles in the field or there's a drop catch, you know, it's little things like that that make a massive difference in cricket, especially.
Everyone makes mistakes, right? It's not everyone makes mistakes, and even in India, and Australia, you know, they have made mistakes as well. So it's not that because of that. Yeah, they have to. And Rishabh Pant, speaking of him, he's not a great wicketkeeper, but he's a great batsman as compared to Saha. That's why I think he's good. And at what he did at Gabba, I think he deserves a place in the playing 11.
Oh no, he definitely deserves a place. You know, and he's going to be, you know, he's got a big part to play in the series. All I'm saying is that as a coach and as a guy who's played, you know, the fielding sets the tone. And I think yesterday watching India after England got on top, they didn't impress in the field. And I think there's little 5% here and there or 2%, and everyone makes mistakes, whether you play a bad shot or you get bowling. But I think fielding is the one discipline in the game that you have complete control over, and you make an impression. And you know, I think Joe Root hit one out in the 90s, and Shubman Gill let it through his legs for 4. And there was one at point. It's just little things that you can really add pressure. And I think that India just looked a little bit off the boil yesterday in the field, and it stems from the keeping. And it's always been a massive talking point in England that we didn't have a great keeper. Or it's, you know, in India, in the subcontinent, you keeper start. That's where you start. And you know, I just think that Pant is not quite up to the quality that you need in India as a high quality keeper. And you know, he's going to have a great series with the bat, but it's very important.
Let me just interrupt for a sec, guys. 2 things. Next time I'm going to have me in the middle and you guys away from each other, because I reckon you're about to punch each other. Joke. No, the reality is, you know what may well happen in the end, to actually get in the middle of this conversation, I can see Pant, if he keeps batting the way that he's capable of batting, he may end up having a batting spot. And you may see the likes of Saha come as a keeper.
Well, look how it is in the England team with Butler and Bairstow and Folkes. You know, that they're picking themselves. And I actually think that if India can work out what I think it will probably happen I don't see that. I think that they need to find keeping is a massively important role, and it sets the tone of the team. And you could be right. It could be that just go and concentrate on your batting. Rishabh, I think he dropped a catch in the second over and was sort of, he hurt his finger and had a sore finger. And the last thing you want him to do is bust a finger keeping. And then not be able to bat. So it's it's an interesting point, and I think that there's a lot of precedent set for that in world cricket that you don't have to keep wicket and play if your batting is good enough. So
just quickly as well, okay. Question that the group is asking: how many runs do England need to make sure that they're going to be in the ascendancy? I think 400 is not enough. 600 is probably more than enough, but realistically, around the 550 marks. A pretty, let's just even say 500, a gauge of how important this is going to be, I think, to at least stave off a loss in England's part. All right, now I'm very conscious we've got 5-6 minutes to go. I just wanted to, obviously, this to make this clear to our viewers, not that they don't know, that England are in fact 3 for 263. We lost Sibley on the last ball of the day for 87, which Australians would shiver at. The reality is we've still got the likes of course, Ruth there 128 not out, and he's been joined by Ben Stokes with Ollie Pope to follow and Butler. It's going to be an amazing first session, which we're about to watch. I can't wait. Just a quick recap. Pakistan are 272 all out. South Africa are 4 for 106, which is, again, Pakistan doing very well. And the game which no one's talking about is Bangladesh and West Indies. Bangladesh with 430 all out and are now 3 for 59 in their second innings after West Indies got 259. So that looks like, again, an understrength West Indies side facing Bangladesh. All right, guys. Last words today. Where are we going to be at the end of the day? Scores. Chris.
Pardon? Oh, me. No, as I said it a couple of times, this first half an hour is probably the test match for me. If Root will have to start again, you often see people come in the next day and getting out in the first sort of couple of overs. Stokes likes to start slowly. He has a look. He'll watch it. There's a second bite of the new ball. If England get through the first half an hour without losing a wicket, I think it could be a long day for India because I think that the pitch will be flat. The ball will get old, and Root. The problem India have got is if England get in today, it'll be a very different day in terms of scoring runs. Sibley just was very slow and steady yesterday, whereas the batters we've got coming in now won't bat slowly. They all score quickly. So if England get in and India are starting to get tired, it's going to be another hot day in the field and the flat wicket. England will score quickly, and it'll be interesting to see how Kohli, having the two spinners who leaked runs yesterday and didn't bowl that well and didn't actually look that great at all, he's going to have to use them to bowl quite a lot of overs today, especially with the seamers getting tired. So if England get in, they're going to be really positive against those two, and it'll be interesting to see how Kohli tries to stop the runs because England will score 4-5 and over against those two spinners. And as I showed yesterday, England scored 130 in the last session. So if England get in, I think that England could. The first hour is huge. If England get past that first,
Score.
I think England will get. I think England will be batting at the end of the day, or they'll be out, or they'll be in India. I think England will get 550, and India will be 20 for 1 at the close. I think I said last night.
Okay, so 550 all out, or at least 550 and 1 for 20. India. Aparna?
Well, I think if they make 600, and if India can't get them out, that would mean batting the whole day today. For those, India's attack clearing up yesterday was strange sort of a day. They bowled very well in catches, particularly when Bumrah, Ishant and Ashwin were in the attack. Both the pressure wasn't built properly, and Sundar discovering how difficult it was in the cricket. I think they will settle in and they would be able to take some early wickets. If not, it'll be a 600 plus 4, which means they would be batting the whole day. I hope that's not the case. So, 450 plus, that's about it.
I think there's a comment in the chat about the pitch. I think India have got a real problem with the pitch this series, because it's clear that their second and third choice spinners aren't great, and I'm going to be controversial. I don't think Washington Sundar looks like a Test match bowler at the moment. He might be, especially as an attacking option. And Nadeem Shabazz doesn't look like a Test match bowler at the moment either. The problem they've got is that their strength is potentially in their seam department, but they're sat there going, if we play to our strengths, that's only going to bring England into the game more, because England have got better seam bowlers and have got a really good in-depth. There's Chris Wokes and Stuart Broad who aren't even playing in this test. And
all right, I'm going to cut you off, guys. We've got 2 minutes before the game starts. To be fair to the people viewing, they probably want to watch the live match as it might do. All right, so I think it looks like England's going to bat most of the day. Sad to say. For India, happy to say for England. Okay, Chennai might be a reason for the pitch. Let's go. All right, guys. Thanks, guys. We'll see you post-game. Enjoy everybody at the time. And thank Barry Knight for being on the phone. A man, a legend. We'll talk more to him, hopefully, face-to-face soon. This is Norman Kosling and Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kosling. See you guys. See you soon.
Guys.